Hey everyone, welcome to our deep dive into data backups. It's something we all know we should be doing, but let's face it, it's not exactly the most exciting topic. But trust me on this one, it's worth taking the time to figure out. Because losing all your photos, videos, and important files, well, that's a nightmare scenario none of us want to experience. So to help us navigate this whole backup world, we've got some fantastic sources that break down the process in a way that's, well, hopefully not too painful.
Yeah, we're aiming for informative and engaging, not a boring lecture on data security.
Exactly. So you shared some articles about the 3-2-1 backup strategy. 3 copies of your data, 2 types of storage, 1 offsite. Sounds simple enough on paper, but I'm curious, how do we actually put this into practice? What are the smartest ways to go about it?
Okay, so let's start by building a strong foundation for your backup system. Kind of like constructing a house. You need a solid base before you add all the fancy stuff.
Makes sense. So what are the essential building blocks of a reliable backup system?
Well, your primary data storage is where it all begins. That's your computer, your external hard drive.
Hmm.
Basically, wherever you keep your files organized on a daily basis.
Right, so that's our starting point. Organize files on our main device.
Hmm.
Now, cloud storage is becoming super popular these days. Services like iCloud, Google Drive, Dropbox, they all promise to keep our files safe and accessible from anywhere. How does cloud storage fit into this core backup system?
Cloud storage is great. It basically acts as an effortless backup because
Oh,
your files are constantly being synced, so you've always got a copy stored remotely. And of course, you get that accessibility across multiple devices, which is amazing.
okay, so we've got our organized files on our main device
Hmm.
and cloud storage as like a first backup. What's the next layer in this foundation?
That's where a local backup comes in. We're
Or,
talking about a separate external hard drive that you keep safe and only connect when you're actively backing up your data.
hmm, okay. Why is this local backup so important? I mean, don't we already have a copy in the cloud?
You do, but think of this local backup as like a first line of defense against the unexpected. Things like ransomware attacks, accidental file deletions, even hard drive failures. A local backup can really save you in those situations.
Okay, I'm starting to see the value in that extra layer of protection. But let's face it, we're living in a digital age with tons of photos, videos, music collections. It can be a real headache keeping it all organized, even before we start thinking about backing it up.
Absolutely, and that's why one of the most practical tips I came across in our research is to establish a clear folder structure from the get-go. Like, organize your data into categories that make sense for you. Photos, documents, financial records, things like that.
So we're not just dumping everything into one giant digital junk drawer.
Nope, definitely not. A well-structured system makes finding files easier. And it also makes restoring data from a backup much smoother, if you ever need to.
All right, I'm sold on the importance of organization. So
Yeah.
we've got our organized files, our cloud storage, and a local backup. That feels like a pretty solid starting point.
It is. That covers the basics of building a reliable backup system. But remember, the goal here is to create a system that's robust enough to withstand even the most unexpected disasters. And that's where the 3-2-1 rule comes in.
Ah, the famous 3-2-1 strategy. We've mentioned it briefly, but let's unpack it fully. What exactly does it entail? And why is it considered the gold standard for data backup?
Well, the 3-2-1 rule is all about redundancy, minimizing the risk by having multiple copies of your data stored in different locations and on different types of media. It's like diversifying your investments. But for your data,
So 3 copies of our data. We have our original files, the local backup, and what's the third?
the third copy is your offsite backup. It's like your ultimate safety net, stored in a completely separate location from your home or office.
Okay, so we've got our 3 copies. Now the 2 types of storage part. I'm guessing this is where the cloud and our physical backups come in.
Exactly. The cloud is great for accessibility and those automatic updates, but it's always good to have a physical copy as well, something that's not reliant on an internet connection or susceptible to the same online threats as your computer.
I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together. We've got our primary storage, our cloud backup, our local backup, and now we're adding an offsite copy for that extra peace of mind. But let's be realistic. The idea of managing all these backups, it sounds a bit overwhelming, especially if you're dealing with a lot of data.
It can be. But the good news is there are ways to make this whole process much easier, even, dare I say, enjoyable.
Okay, you've got my attention.
Yeah.
Tell me more about this enjoyable backup experience you speak of.
Well, that's where we'll delve into the world of automation and how to choose the right offsite backup solution for your specific needs.
Sounds good. I'm ready to explore those options and hopefully discover that backing up my data doesn't have to be a chore.
Me too.
So we've laid the groundwork for a solid backup system. But I'm curious about that final piece of the 3-2-1 puzzle, the offsite backup. What are the most effective ways to create that extra layer of protection without it becoming a logistical nightmare?
That's a great question, and thankfully there are more options than ever these days.
Yeah.
You can definitely find a solution that fits your lifestyle and your budget.
Okay, so let's break down those options. What are some of the most popular choices for offsite backups?
Cloud services are definitely a top contender, especially if you're already comfortable using the cloud for storage. If you're using a primary cloud provider for everyday syncing, like iCloud or Google Drive, you can easily add a secondary cloud service specifically for offsite backups.
So we're talking about having two separate cloud accounts. Isn't that a bit redundant?
It might seem that way at first,
Right.
but it actually offers a really clever level of protection. Think of it this way. Your primary cloud account is all about ease of access and constant syncing, while that secondary cloud acts as more of a secure vault for your most important data.
Okay, I'm starting to see the logic there. What are some of the top contenders in the secondary cloud space?
Backblaze is a popular choice. It's known for its user-friendly interface and its affordable pricing, especially if you have a large amount of data to back up. They offer unlimited storage for a flat monthly fee, which can be a real game changer if you're dealing with massive photo or video libraries.
Unlimited storage sounds pretty tempting. What about other options?
Another service worth considering is AWS Glacier. It's specifically designed for archiving data that you don't need to access frequently, so it's a really cost-effective solution for those just-in-case files.
So Backblaze for more active backups
Yeah.
and AWS Glacier for that long-term archival. It's a pretty powerful combination. But what if someone isn't entirely comfortable with the cloud? Are there any alternatives for offsite backups?
Absolutely. While the cloud is incredibly convenient, it's not the right fit for everyone. Some people prefer a more tangible approach, and that's where physical offsite backups come in.
So we're talking about that second external hard drive I was hoping to avoid.
Well, you could use a second external drive, but instead of storing it at home, consider keeping it in a secure storage facility. These facilities offer climate-controlled environments and top-notch security. Essentially, they act as bank vaults for your data. It's a great option if you want that physical copy of your data, but you don't want to worry about fire theft or other potential disasters at home.
That's definitely a step up from stashing a hard drive under the bed.
Yeah.
What about combining cloud and physical backups? Is there a way to get the best of both worlds?
You're thinking like a pro. Hybrid solutions are becoming increasingly popular, especially for users with extensive data needs. This typically involves using a local network-attached storage device, or NAS for short, paired with cloud syncing.
Hold on, a NAS. Can you break down what that is and how it works?
Sure, think of a NAS as like a personal cloud server that lives in your home.
Yeah.
It's a dedicated device for storing and managing all your data locally. And some NAS devices even come with built-in software that automates cloud backups, so you get both a local and off-site copy of your data without having to lift a finger.
Okay, now that sounds impressive, but I'm guessing a setup like that comes with a pretty hefty price tag.
NAS devices can range in price, but there are definitely some affordable options available, especially if you're just starting out. And remember, you can always start small and scale up as your needs grow.
This is all starting to make sense, but I have to admit, the more we talk about backups, the more I realize how much work it could potentially be. Manually backing up files, remembering to update that offsite copy, it all feels a bit overwhelming.
You're not wrong, but the good news is automation is key to a successful and stress-free backup strategy. And there are tons of tools and services out there designed to streamline this whole process.
Okay, I'm all ears. Let's dive into the world of automated backups. Where do we even begin?
One of the simplest ways to get started is with scheduled cloud syncs. Most cloud providers offer this feature. It allows you to choose specific folders to automatically sync at regular intervals. It's perfect for documents, photos, or other files that change frequently.
So no more manually dragging and dropping files into the cloud. That's a relief.
Exactly. Set it and forget it. And for even more control, you can explore tools like Apple Time Machine or Arc Backup. Arc supports multiple cloud providers, which is nice. These tools take automation to the next level by creating something called incremental backups.
I've heard of incremental backups, but can you explain how they work and why they're so beneficial?
Sure. Imagine you're working on a large video project, right? With an incremental backup. It's only going to upload the changes you've made since the last backup, rather than copying that entire multi-gigabyte file every single time. This saves you time, bandwidth, and storage space, making the whole process much more efficient.
That makes a lot of sense. Are there specific tools that excel at incremental backups?
Backblaze, which we mentioned earlier, offers this functionality. And if you're using a NAS device, the Synology NAS software is excellent for handling both local and cloud incremental backups seamlessly.
Okay, I'm starting to feel like a backup ninja. But what about those physical offsite backups? Do we just set a calendar reminder and hope for the best?
Calendar reminders are definitely a good starting point, but there are ways to make even physical backups more efficient.
I'm intrigued. How do we streamline the physical backup process? Okay, so we've got cloud backups, local backups, offsite backups, even some automation tricks. Feels like we've covered all the bases. But is there anything else we should be thinking about when it comes to keeping our data safe?
You know, there is one crucial point we haven't really touched on yet. Your backup system. It's not a set it and forget it deal. It needs regular checkups, just like anything else important in your life.
Okay, so it's not enough to just set up these backups and assume everything's running smoothly. I need to actually, pay attention to my backups.
Exactly. Think of it like a smoke detector. You wouldn't just install it and never check the batteries, right? Your backup system deserves that same level of care and attention.
So how often should we be giving our backups a checkup?
At least once a year is a good rule of thumb. Mark it on your calendar, set a reminder, whatever works for you.
An annual backup checkup. I like it. But what am I looking for during this review? What are the key things to consider?
First, check your storage capacity. Have you hit your limits on your cloud service or external drives? If so, it might be time to upgrade or explore alternative solutions.
Makes sense. Outgrowing your storage is never a good thing. What else should we be checking?
Take a look at your automation setup. Are there any new tools or services that could streamline your backups even further? You know, those incremental backups we talked about? They can really save you a lot of time and effort in the long run.
Right. I'm all about making this process as efficient as possible. Anything else?
This is also a good time to reassess your data security needs. If you're handling increasingly sensitive information, you might want to look into encryption to add that extra layer of protection.
Encryption. Okay, maybe that's a deep dive for another day. But for now, can you just give a quick explanation of how encryption helps protect my backups?
Sure, basically, encryption scrambles your data, making it unreadable to anyone who doesn't have the decryption key. It's like adding a digital lock to your most valuable information. So even if someone gains access to your backups, they can't actually make sense of the data.
So it's like having a secret code that only I know. I like it.
Uh,
Any other final tips before we wrap up this deep dive?
Don't forget to check for software updates. Your backup software, cloud services, even your operating system, they all need regular updates to stay secure and function properly. It's like a digital tune-up, keeping everything running smoothly.
Okay, so we're checking storage capacity, looking for automation improvements, considering encryption, and keeping our software updated. That's a pretty solid checklist for our annual backup checkup. This
Right.
has been incredibly helpful. I feel much more confident about taking control of my backups and protecting my data.
That's what we're here for. And remember, the best backup strategy is the one that works for you. There's no one-size-fits-all solution. It's about finding that right balance between security, accessibility, and practicality.
Well said. So, as we wrap up, I have one final thought for our listeners. As technology continues to evolve at this incredible pace, how do you think backup strategies will adapt? Will we still be relying on external drives and cloud services in the future? Or will something entirely new emerge? It's definitely something to ponder as we navigate this ever changing digital landscape. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of data backups. We'll see you next time for another exploration into the fascinating world of knowledge